welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be sharing the new research looking at what loyalty, membership, appeal and impact looks like across Europe. I'm joined by my fellow panel of experts, and hopefully we've got a really good 45-minute session lined up for you here today. So without further ado, Zsuzsa is going to introduce who we all are, I think.
Yes, hi everyone. This is my honor to introduce everyone because today we are hosting this webinar on Antavo's technology, as we are quite experienced with all these webinars and education sessions and so on. And this is why it's such a nice thing now to host the whole webinar around loyalty in Europe. I'm Zsuzsa Kecsmar, one of the co-founders of Antavo, which is a loyalty cloud, which is a piece of technology to run loyalty programs, very innovative loyalty programs, just like KFC has a great one, or Tommy Hilfiger, or BMW. So quite nice companies who are using Antavo, and we are servicing them with our 100 people team. So I would like to hand it over now to Charlie to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, number 2 on the slide. My name's Charlie Hills. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Mando-Connect, which is WPP's loyalty and partnerships agency. We commission, author and coordinate all the research across Europe and the British market, looking to understand what people really want from loyalty programs, and then designing brand partnerships and strategies to delight those people and give them exactly what they want. So this is the second year of the research, the pan-European research that we've done, and I'm delighted to be here today. I will hand now to Abby Blanchard.
Hello, I'm Abby Blanchard, so I'm Senior Strategist at Mando-Connect. I work alongside Charlie and have helped write this year's white paper, and I will be moderating today's wonderful discussion between our lovely panelists, and I'll pass over to Dylan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Dylan. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at YouGov. For anyone who's not aware with YouGov, we're a global analytics, data and research group, and we run market research across millions of consumers around the world. So where YouGov come into the play here is that we work really closely with Mando-Connect. So we provide the data that's driven a lot of the insights that you're going to be hearing about today. I'll pass on to Rasmus.
Yes, so my name is Rasmus Houlind, and I am the Chief Experience Officer at the marketing automation platform technology company called Agillic, primarily clients in the Nordics here. I'm probably more likely here because I'm also the author of this book, Hello First Name, so my thing is really personalization. And as we're going to discuss later on as well, personalization and loyalty do indeed go hand in hand. So really looking forward to this. I think it's you again now, Charlie.
It is. And also, as well as the 5 of us, we just wanted to flag the community of broad experts who've all contributed to this research. I think that's one of my favorite things about this research. It's understanding the stories and the insights and the experience that everyone brings from the different markets we represent, and also the different formats that we represent. We've got universities, we've got academics, we've got program leads, we've got agency leads, we've got platform leads, we've got researchers all contributing to what I hope is a brilliant piece of research to share with you all today. So I'm just going to name check everybody because I promised I would. So Cristina Ziliani of the Loyalty Observatory in Italy, Emile from Milton representing Sweden, Michael from the University of Bordeaux representing France, Nicole of Get Focused representing Germany, Pavel of Open Loyalty representing Poland, Radek representing the Czech Republic of Voxwise, Rick from Loyalty Chiefs, who actually covered the Dutch market for us this year but covered the Belgian market for us last year, Rasmus who's representing the Danish market, Zsuzsa who's covering Hungary, and then we had 3 really fabulous program leads as well that we did deep dive case studies in the white paper for you. So Beth Simpson of Canon, Michael and Elliot from Oracle Red Bull Racing, and Peter from Club Mata. So hopefully a really inspiring bunch for you all. What we're going to cover today, we're going to rattle through the research, key insights, stats, all the things that will be really useful for you in building business cases and loyalty strategies across those European markets. You can, of course, download the full white paper and have full access to all the depths. So we've just got some highlights for you today. We're going to pull out the key insights and case studies, and then we've got some nice kind of interactive panel and Q&A sessions throughout. And as Zsuzsa mentioned, Antavo are kindly hosting this for us using their GoToWebinar platform. So you can see top right the opportunity to add in any questions you have for us. And please feel free to add in those questions as we go through. And then we've got a session at the end as well to make sure we answer those questions. And of course, all the experts are available after today as well to run through any questions you might have. So if you get off today and there's something you desperately wanted to know, please do follow up and get in touch with us. So to start with, what is the research that you're going to see here today? So it's Understanding Loyalty in Europe 2.0. We published the first research in 2023, and our ambition is to keep these going forever. It covers 24 European markets, so you can see within the detailed report exactly which markets we've covered. And this year's research looks at loyalty, appeal, and impact across those markets. So what does that population think of loyalty programs? Do they like them? Do they want them? Do they join them? Are our sort of appeal metrics that we're looking at. And then on impact, we're looking at functional metrics like spend and loyalty. And we're also looking at emotional metrics like emotional connection and recommendation as well. So it's a really useful snapshot for you of actually what's going on in that market. What we've then done, as I've just talked you through, is the experts. We brought 10 markets to life in more detail. So we asked each of our experts to dig into the data for their market and to understand, why does the data look like that in that market? What's happening and what's driving that particular market, and also what's new and interesting in that market. We then asked them to comment on the loyalty gauge data that you'll see and provide 3 top-line case studies of interesting programs in their markets. And that personally is my favorite bit of the research, understanding what other people are up to in other markets and nicking all the best bits. So I thoroughly recommend you take the same approach. We then also built in 3 deep dive double page program case studies, so you can get more of an in-depth view of some particularly interesting programs. So we looked at Cannon Club, particularly interesting for its community activity. We looked at Oracle Red Bull Racing, particularly interesting for its fan engagement strategy. And we looked at Club Matas, particularly interesting for its retail innovation and actually what it's doing in different tiers and new and exciting ways of driving member engagement. So 3 really great, very different case studies. We chose a Danish program for the third one because we actually launched this research at the Loyalty Summit CXM in Copenhagen. So if you're wondering why we particularly picked a Danish program, that was why. But it's also a fascinating market, which is why we've got Rasmus on the call with us today. And then lastly, we're going to show you the loyalty gauge, which is a useful one-slide snapshot, because I know everybody loves a one slide, of actually what does the whole net European picture look like. What does appeal and impact look like in each of those markets? And then we've also included the 2023 membership data for you. Actually, what does membership look like in each of these markets? And we'll be re-releasing that later this year for 2024 as well. So that's an overview of the research. Over to Dylan.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we thought it'd be useful just to spend 2 minutes or so explaining where the data comes from that has driven this white paper. So all the data that we'll be seeing today has come from our syndicated product global profiles, which is our global audience intelligence and profiling platform. So within the platform, we hold consumer data across 48 different markets, half of which are the European ones that we're going to be hearing about today. And each consumer in the platform, which is around 266,000 worldwide, they've all answered a 1,000 question survey. And that's everything from demographics to attitudes and behaviors. And what that does is it allows our clients like Mando-Connect to get a really comprehensive picture of what their target market looks like. And then more crucially, how to engage and how to target them.
Fantastic, and we love it. We love our partnership with YouGov, and we obviously work with them really closely on this European research and also British research, and then in whatever other markets our clients are operating in as well. It's a really fantastic tool. Can't recommend it enough.
Great. We've come to our first poll, so we're interested in seeing what you think. Let me launch the poll. On average, how many Europeans are members of loyalty programs? Is it around 30%? Is it more than 85%? Or is it a little bit more than 60%? I'll give you about 30 seconds to get your votes in. I can see about 50% of you have voted, so Wait for that number to tick up slightly. Right, I'll give you last 10 seconds to get your vote in if you haven't done it already.
I can already see we have quite an optimistic audience here and a very enthusiastic professional audience, right?
Yeah. Right, I'm going to close the poll and let's see our answers. So there we go. Majority think a little bit more than 60%. 22% of you think more than 85%, and then we've got a few pessimists on the call that think around 30%. So yeah, I'll hide the poll and over to Dylan to share the actual numbers with you.
Yeah, so most of you got it right. So the first kind of key takeout from this white paper is the 2023 membership data. And yeah, the majority of adults in the majority of markets are a member of a loyalty program. So 61% is the overarching average figure. You can see some of the market breakouts on the left-hand side. And from kind of talking to the local experts and the British data that we've been looking at, we expect that to be on the rise. And watch out, because in 2024, or Q4 of 2024, we'll be releasing that 2024, the latest membership data. So it'd be really interesting to see if our kind of hypothesis is correct in that sense. Great. So the kind of second key takeout from the white paper is looking at Europeans' kind of attitudes and opinions towards loyalty, and some stats that you can see here. Just over half think loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. 42% think that brands should offer a loyalty program, and 35% join loyalty programs each time they're given the opportunity. So none of these metrics actually changed significantly from the 2023 data that we had. But once you kind of delve into the data, there were some really interesting kind of market nuances to take from it. So if we take someone like Norway, for example, so they received double-digit growth across all three of these metrics, which kind of considering they were really ranked highly last year, that makes that kind of growth even more impressive. There are a few other kind of market nuances. So in Bulgaria, Belgium, and Turkey, we saw kind of modest decline in two of these metrics. Which reflects a huge opportunity for kind of a really impactful program and to really capture the hearts and minds of consumers in those markets.
Fantastic. So when we then go on to dive into that data in detail and actually look at each of those individual appeal metrics as a set piece of insight, it then starts to get really interesting, and that market variation that Dylan is talking about really comes to life. So I'd really encourage you all to have a look at the paper and see what's happening in your market and how it compares to other markets. So the first appeal metric that we look at is loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. So what we're asking is we're asking all the adults in this market in a statistically robust sample, do you think loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers? Now, as a Brit and a proud kind of Brit, I was delighted to see the British right at the top here. So 74% of the British adult population think that loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. It's a fantastic market, very positive, very engaged. And then that's followed by the Polish, the Irish, the Germans, the Slovakians, the Spanish, the Bulgarians, the French, the Croatians, and the Italians. And you can obviously see all 24 markets in the white paper itself. When we look at the tail end of who's struggling, who's not so engaged with loyalty, and where are the sort of problem child markets, then actually we see the Danish, the Dutch, and the Turkish are really skeptical. Sorry, Rasmus, only 32, 37, and 41%. And actually this year versus 2023, we did see declines overall in 17 out of 24 markets for this. Loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers, and there's some really interesting hypotheses in the white paper about why that might have happened. You know, the impact of the cost of living crisis, the structure of the retail nature in the market, the wealth of that market, the importance of loyalty programs in that market. And again, I really encourage you to dig into that white paper and see as to what our experts thought were the reasons driving that decline. But again, at the other end, we then had some markets with massive increases. You know, Norway, Denmark and GB with, you know, big year-on-year increases. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this research. It clearly shows that Europe is not a homogenous market. One size does not fit all in Europe. You actually have to look at these 24 markets as individual markets with individual needs and individual audiences. And then obviously within those markets, exactly as our personalization expert would recommend, we need to look at segments and individuals as well. So this is a really useful kind of net picture for the markets. After we look at, you know, do you like loyalty programs, we're then saying, actually, well, you know, do you think every brand should have a loyalty program? Really interesting indicator of saturation, but also a really strong indicator of appeal, because if you're an adult and you love loyalty programs, you want every brand to have one. So what we see sitting at the top here is the Irish with 56% thinking every brand should have a loyalty program, followed by the Bulgarians, the Brits in at number 3 again, France, Romania, Croatia, Poland, Spain, Slovakia and Greece. And again, in that tail kind of end, the Danish, the Dutch, the Finns and the Swedish are less keen. Actually, they don't think every brand should have a loyalty program. So again, a really interesting story and some really interesting variations by market. The third and final appeal metric that we look at is about saturation and will people join when they're given the chance. You know, if a brand opens a new loyalty program, will people just join, or do they need heavy incentivization to do so? And consistent with 2023, we saw that the Polish love their loyalty programs. They will join if you give them the chance. Really transactional, really value-driven market, really, really positive to loyalty. Yes, they will join a program every time they are given a chance. Followed by the Norwegians, the Irish, the Italians, the French, the British, the Finns, the Spains, the Croatians, the Spanish, the Croatians and the Hungarians. So again, a strong kind of picture down there. Now, again, we see this heavy skepticism here from the Dutch, the Danish and the Swedish. And Rasmus, I know you've got some interesting thoughts on what you think is driving that skepticism for appeal in your particular market and that variation across the markets. Are you okay to share?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, of course I am. So first of all, the whole idea of doing vouchers and doing individualized pricing wasn't allowed in Denmark until 2010. So that's one thing. So we don't have the same tradition as, for instance, the UK would have. Also, and this goes both for Denmark and also the Dutch market. So it's fairly affluent countries. So we looked at the GDP per capita and compared that to how interested people are in not only joining, but also how much they believe that the loyalty programs impact their behavior and their emotional loyalty. And we see that these affluent countries, Denmark and the Netherlands, tend to not value so much the discounts that they're getting, because they already have quite a lot of money. So they would be looking for something more. So really the loyalty programs that stand out in our markets, that would be ones like Matas, which is actually a client of mine that I've been working with throughout many years, where they've really taken it to the next level, and they're doing all sorts of interesting and engaging and brand consistent ways of both earning loyalty benefits and rewards, but also in the way that you can be spending with them. Not saying that they don't do transactional loyalty and that they don't do discounts. Obviously they do that, but they have a complete different and more emotional layer on top of that. So that's it for the some of the skepticism, at least, I think.
It is. It's such an interesting topic, and I think, you know, we presented this at the conference, and when we've done the podcasts on it, and when we've talked to loyalty program leads about it, there's that really interesting kind of, you think that loyalty operates in isolation, but actually the context of the market, the audience experience, the research is just so important. So look at it. It's fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing.
And charming. That's what I love about Europe.
Great. So now it's time for you to share your opinion with us again before we dig into the impact metrics. So I'm going to launch the next poll for us. So how many people say loyalty programs make them more loyal? Almost 90%, a little bit more than 40%, or nearly 70%. And again, I'll give you a few seconds to get your votes in. Let's see what you think. Almost everyone has voted. I'll give the last few people a second to get their votes in. This is your 10-second warning. Great, let's reveal the answer. I say answer, let's reveal the results of what everyone thought. So we've got 44% right around a little bit more than 40%, and then 42% at nearly 70%. And then again, we've got 14 at almost 90%. So I'm going to close this and let's reveal the answer, Charlie.
See, I have the research here in front of me, which is really cheeky because obviously I know it inside out. So well done. A large chunk if you got it right. So when we look at our first and most important metric, does loyalty program membership make you more loyal to the brand that's offering the program? A whopping 42%, so it makes them even more loyal. Now that's huge when you think about the breadth of that definition of that word loyalty. So what that means is I stay, I don't switch, I love that brand, I shop with them. It's a really interesting, really powerful metric actually, and 42% is huge. You know, I'm privileged to sit across, you know, lots and lots of agencies in WPP and lots of marketing disciplines, and as those of us that work in loyalty, you know, we can have such a huge influence on customer actual behavior and attitude versus, you know, the TV advert, the digital marketing campaign. So really powerful metric there for us across our 24 markets. Very slightly down versus 2023, so versus 43%, so nothing significant. So really strong performance when it makes them more loyal. The next metric we look at is an emotional metric about recommendation. You know, we're all very familiar with NPS. This is not an NPS metric. This is about are you more likely to recommend a brand when you're a member of its loyalty program? And over a third of European adults say they are. So just having a great membership of a loyalty program, 35% say they're more likely to recommend the brand, which again is extraordinary when you think about that bigger context and all the things that could possibly influence your recommendation of a brand to another person. You know, 35% saying, you know, just being a member of the loyalty program has a huge impact. So if you're sitting there, if you need to make a business case to your CFO, if you need to go and see your CMO and, you know, fight for investment for your loyalty program over other types of marketing, that is a key stat. The third one is, again, another emotional metric. So 31% feel more emotionally connected to the brand when they're a member of a loyalty program. Again, huge, particularly versus the impact on all the other bits of the product and marketing mix that you can think about. That's enormous. And we know how important that emotional connection is. You know, Forrester, we can trust. We know Forrester research. Everybody is familiar with Forrester. You know, if you get the emotion, you get the loyalty and you get the value. So 31% feel more emotionally connected. And lastly, we of course had to include spend. So 29% will spend more when they are a member of a loyalty program. And I think we've seen that particularly in Europe, given the rise of member pricing, given what we've seen happen to basket size and frequency. Spend is really, really important. Now, when we're looking across 24 markets, we obviously only look at this snapshot. When we're looking at kind of in-depth markets, we'd obviously look at a much broader suite of metrics and appeal and functional and all sorts of other sorts of things that we look at. But these top four are the ones that we look at across Europe.
Great. And then a little bit of a panel discussion to break up the data. So Rasmus, I'm going to come to you first on this question. How can brands move away from transactional loyalty and towards more emotional loyalty?
Yeah, that's a good question. And thank you for asking it. First of all, I don't think brands necessarily need to move away from transactional loyalty, because that is indeed part of what a brand should be offering as part of the loyalty program. But really what moves the needle, especially in the affluent markets, is when you then start adding something on top where the customer feels seen and heard and acknowledged for their purchase history and for their knowledge, for their loyalty. Actually, reflecting that in the way that you are starting to become more and more personal with that particular customer. So really personalization, using all the data, because what is true for all loyalty programs is that they are indeed creating a lot of data. In fact, I think that's almost why they were born in the first place, in order to identify the customer at the till. So using that data, because I mean, a discount can be replicated and copied, but the feeling of getting something from the retailer that is super personalized and this is explicitly for me and is in line with my preferences, inferred or explicitly stated, is something that you can't copy that feeling, you can't copy that emotion. So really, I think using the data to personalize better is one way of getting more emotional loyalty.
Great. And Zsuzsa, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, so I also agree that transactional loyalty shouldn't move away, but the true differentiator will come, which is on the top of it, like what is the differentiator, how it can be more. And there are a couple of great examples I think many of us on this call really knows. For example, Nike and Adidas, they do this move to earn kind of loyalty programs. When you work out or you spend time like moving your body, this is when you can earn so you can burn later. One of our customers is Rip Curl, which is a surfwear brand. They do very similar surf to earn. Another one is a mountain bear. Yeah, I love this too. The other one is Bergzeit, a German mountain bear retailer. They do this hike to earn. So basically, everyone, what we can see is they think of the lifestyle of the people who are their customers and trying to appeal them. I think beautiful examples are from H&M too, when they reward if you recycle. It's another moment for emotional loyalty. Or Skims, the Kim Kardashian Skims recently launched their loyalty program, and then they reward you for your purchases, not like from the moment when the loyalty program is launched, but basically they reward your purchase history too. It's a great way, I think, to not only think of what you can reward, but also those gestures that you can give to your customers that really create that feeling, just like Rasmus mentioned, that just feels great. It's like Skims appreciating me, like making a purchase 1 year ago, and it puts me to a higher level by default. That's amazing. So I think these little moments, like showing that there is a human behind a loyalty program, these really matter and can be really effective.
Great, thank you. Charlie, we'll let you go on to the next slide for us, please.
Ooh, loyalty gauge, follow up a lovely chat about emotional versus functional loyalty with a dial. When you get into the loyalty paper, the loyalty gauge will make a lot of sense. So what we do is we look at what does membership look like, what does appeal look like, and what does impact look like. And then we add those all up, and what we get is a net loyalty score for loyalty engagement in that market. And then you can see a really clear picture of actually where your priorities should be in each market. So for example, if you've got really low membership in a market that's got really high membership, it's interesting to ask why. If you're seeing really low appeal for your program in a market that's also got low appeal, then maybe it's that market skepticism, or maybe actually if you've got low appeal in a high appeal market, horror, maybe you're doing something wrong and you need to check out what the best programs are doing in your market so that you can match their appeal. So it's very tactical, very useful data. Now, what we did this year is so far, because for 2024, we only have the appeal and impact data, we've built the loyalty gauge based on those two metrics. So you can see loyalty appeal, net score on the left, loyalty impact, and then the net score here at 7.8. This is our European average and a really useful benchmark for you. In Q4, we'll add in the membership data as well. And if you'd like to look at what it looked like in 2023, of course, you can download the 2023 paper as well and have a look at what that net picture looks like. So it's a really useful, very simple way of understanding what's going on in your market and how you should be adapting your loyalty strategy to fit that market. Now, for some reason, the slide, here we go, the slide is frozen. Hopefully it won't jump ahead. I kicked it twice. So this is our net loyalty gauge across our 24 markets. So the way to read this is, as you can see on the bottom is the appeal score. On the top is the impact score. So our most loyalty engaged market for appeal and impact in 2024 is Poland. If we have any Polish people in the audience, I hope you're cheering. You're right at the top. It's a bit like Eurovision. It's very exciting.
Exactly.
Followed by Great Britain. Yeah, Great Britain, woohoo! France, Ireland, Spain, Slovakia, Romania, and unfortunately all the way down to Denmark at the bottom, where Rasmus sits proudly in last place.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like a Saturday evening, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. We always struggle, but yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And what you can see is here is whilst those net scores look very same, there are some really interesting differences market by market. So, for example, if you look about 2/3 of the way down, you can see that Turkey and Switzerland actually have very similar net scores, but when you get into it, appeal is really low in Turkey, but impact is really high. If your audience doesn't like loyalty programs, why are they so effective? Whereas in Switzerland, actually, you've got a kind of an even balance between appeal and impact. So actually good things happening in that market, but a huge headroom if you look at what's happening in Poland to do more. So if you're sitting there in the Swiss market, you should be looking at this and going, all right, well, I need to get my appeal up and I need to get my impact up. Which are the markets that I should be looking at for inspiration? And very clearly you should be up at that top end: Poland, Great Britain and France. I also am a huge fan of the cautionary tale. I think it's as interesting to learn from the markets where actually we are struggling in appeal and impact as it is from the ones where we're excelling. So again, check out, you'll see both of them, the Dutch market and the Danish market, in the paper in detail to see, why isn't it quite working in those markets, and what could those markets do differently or better to ramp up their scores. I'm hoping by 2025, Rasmus, Denmark will be right up at the top. Single-handedly, you can sort that out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll fix it. Don't worry.
Great. And then one last panel discussion before we move into our Q&A section. Zsuzsa, I'm going to come to you first on this question. How do you think loyalty programs are aiding in the collection of zero and first-party data? And I'm going to add to that a little bit. What are they doing with that data?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially because of the recent news. So we hear it now for years that Google is going to retire cookies, and then it just got rescheduled again. So Google is not retiring cookies. Surprise, surprise. I don't know if it can be surprised anymore. But the point is, whatever Google does, it still makes a lot of sense to collect zero-party data. What is zero-party data? Zero-party data is what you ask and know, and first-party data is what you see and realize that it's there. Like Google Analytics, it could be first-party data. If you ask, what is your name? How old are you? This is zero-party data. And it's just always really nice to think of collecting more and more zero-party data. And in case of loyalty programs, the situation is tricky because you don't want to ask everything like right now, just straight to the point, because you want people to sign up. So what we see based on the 60 customers that we have all over the world, in terms of which is the best, which are the best practices, is make enrollment easy, like ask for first name, last name, email address, chat box, that's it. And after that, make sure to ask everything that you want in a fun way. We call it gamified profiling or gamified survey or just a survey. And it can be really fun, like this Tinder, like swipe left, swipe right kind of way. So there are 4 pictures. Which is your style? Pick one. Or which are your product preferences? So it can be done in a nice way. And in a loyalty program, you can reward that. You don't need to expect customers to do this for free, even though you could, because they will get personalized offers out of it. But you can give them, I don't know how many points or this or that reward. And then this sweetens the deal. This is how I see it.
That's a great answer. We're going to move on to the Q&A in a second, but Dylan's just going to do a quick summary of the data points that we've just been taken through. So whilst Dylan does that, if everybody can start thinking of their questions, there's a question box for you to drop them into, and we have about 10 minutes left to go through and ask our lovely panelists some additional questions.
Great. Yes, I'm hoping you'll all agree. So the insights and the data that we've kind of heard about today, they give us that really good pan-European view of loyalty in Europe. So us Brits, the Polish, the Irish, we love loyalty, and we're really kind of leading the way in terms of Europe, in terms of loyalty. So if you're not operating in those markets, now is definitely the time to kind of invest in those. There's some market deep dives in the white paper, so I'd really do recommend downloading that and having a look at kind of Denmark and other Hungary and some other market deep dives. But loyalty programs really matter to us consumers throughout the continent. They engage really big audiences, and they really continue to win kind of hearts, minds, and even wallets.
Fantastic. Now, we were going to rattle through some market deep dives for you, but we did think we would run out of time, and I think those questions are really important. So what I'm going to do is flash the slides at you, and then what we'll do is we'll go through them, and then you can see them in the white paper alongside the other 7. So we had some brilliant insight on the Hungarian market. Check it out. If we'd had more time, Zsuzsa would be telling you all about these 3 brilliant programs and why the Hungarian market looks like it does, but it's all in the paper. And of course, you can follow up with her afterwards. I think the Libri one is particularly cool. Rasmus was then going to talk to you again about these 3 programs. Again, really interesting. I mean, who'd have thought a football club could be considered a loyalty program? So check it out all in the paper. Follow up with Rasmus.
Nothing more emotional than loyalty. than football.
I know, right? Not personally, I'm British. I like rugby, but you know, I'll leave you with your football. And then the British market, obviously, I would have talked to you about in terms of some of the big award-winning programs and some really interesting stuff that we're seeing. Again, it's all in the white paper. So without further ado, we'll now come into the, oh, sorry, this was also the snapshot of all the programs in the white paper. So check them out. There's a really, really exciting bunch. And then in terms of the Q&A, Abby, were you fielding the Q&A, or is that something I was doing? I can see the document.
That's my job. So I will ask you. Let's start here with, what are the most important loyalty trends for the future? Zsuzsa, do you want to start with this, and then maybe let's hear Rasmus's opinion as well?
Sorry,
yes.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. What are the most important loyalty trends for the future?
So I think that is going to be moving from transactional to emotional loyalty, and anything you can do to make that happen. So it will be really starting to actually use the zero-party data and the first-party data that you are collecting, and making sure that that actually comes into something that is in benefit of the end customer. Because I see a lot of loyalty programs where the data is collected and the points are given out, and there may be given discounts and special offers the other way around. But really, quite often the loyalty programs are just a really complicated way of giving discounts, at least in the Nordics. And as you know, in the Nordics, or as in Benelux, that doesn't amount to much, because people generally maybe don't need the discounts, even though everybody likes a discount. So really what moves the needle is making sure that you use that data for something that makes sense, for something that will give the consumer a relevant way of spending more time with the brand, or having experiences that are on brand, and making sure that actually works together. So and personalization is a big part of that. So personalizing not only the way that you're collecting data, as in some of the gamified tactics that Zsuzsa was talking about, but also using personalization in the way that you are the way that you're matching the different benefits that you have to each individual customer, and making sure that you show them personalized ways of actually burning those benefits, or redeeming those vouchers or coupons and offer in a way that is again on brand, and that is either helpful, or that it provides a social capital, or that gives functional advantages and such, and not just only gives discounts.
Great. We've got some really good questions that have come in on that have come in on the chat. I think this is a really good one. And Charlie, I'm going to ask this to you. How would you recommend loyalty programs who span across different markets try and create a unified program? Our goal is to have a consistent program, but it seems that this isn't always the best approach.
Oh, that's a great question, and whoever asked that one. We looked at that specifically in the 2023 paper, actually. So do download it, because we put in 2 different case studies in there of programs that approach that same problem very differently. So Marriott Bonvoy, one of the world's biggest kind of programs, millions, hundreds of millions of members. They have a one-size-fits-all approach. So they have a single program globally, and then what they do is they tailor their communications by market for relevant context and audience insight. And then we also looked at Samsung members, who actually have a freedom in a framework approach, where they actually have core principles that inform Samsung members across all its global executions. But each market is given freedom within that framework to execute it in a way that is appropriate to their market. So for example, in Italy, they do lots and lots of competitions. In Britain, it's more about tips and tricks, and that's influenced by what the audience want, also the management structure of the company, and also the budgets that are available. So I personally feel that the freedom in a framework approach is probably the most effective. I know my fellow experts, particularly Rasmus, will agree. It's really important to understand and bake your brand DNA into your program, and to understand what your program is globally and how that sits alongside your global master brand. And one of my favorite quotes was from Tash Whitney, who runs Tesco Clubcard in Great Britain, and she said the loyalty program should always operate in service to the brand. And I think that rings true at a global level as well as a market specific level. So I think you bake your brand DNA into your program, you understand how your program serves your brand, how it serves your audience at a global level, understand your key pillars, your key proposition, your key offer to your audience, your key mechanic, your key kind of rewards and benefits, and then actually work with your individual markets or regions, depending how you're structured, to understand what that particular audience needs in that particular market. And I hope our our research today has showed you that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all, even across Europe, let alone all the different continents. So I think that's a really important principle to get right. You know, if we are trying to build proper relationships with our audience, we have to take that approach.
Great, really good answer.
That may work for the hotels or for the Marriott Bonvoy, because there indeed you will have. I think it's also very niche, because that will be for people who are traveling a lot. So even though they might be belonging to different nationalities, they might still share the same characteristics as they are people who travel probably on some layers of the society. Whereas others will have totally different assortments from country to country, and so it may be much harder to actually make that unified approach.
Definitely.
Yeah, great. We have time for one last question. There's loads of great questions on the chat, so we'll figure out a way to get you some answers to those. I think I've just volunteered myself to come back with answers to those for you. But I'm going to end on this one. I'm going to open it up to all of you, so feel free to shout with your examples. Do you have any examples of strong mission-based loyalty programs that are more about driving awareness about positive community impacts a brand is making and connecting customers to this? So that sort of CSR charitable aspect of a program.
Yeah, I think in the British market, I would recommend checking out Co-op, really strong community angle. You buy in for £1 and you actually own part of the company, really, really strong community activations. Canon, less in a CSR space, but definitely in a community and member engagement place. That's one of the programs that we put in the white paper. Another big British program would be Marks and Spencer's Sparks. You know, every time you swipe, they actually donate to charity. And probably one of the more interesting trends that we're seeing in this space is about rewarding for appropriate behavior that's about corporate social responsibility. So Costa Coffee Club is one of my favorites. If you go to a Costa Coffee chain and you get your, you use one of their cups, you have to buy 10 coffees to get one free. If you take your own reusable cup, you only have to do 5. So it's twice as good if you demonstrate sustainable behavior. So a few really good examples from our markets. I know my experts have got other ones as well.
Yeah, Zsuzsa, you'd mentioned H&M earlier. Are there any others that you can think of?
So charity is one thing, rewarding recycling is the other thing, or living healthy lifestyle is another thing. Like we have a customer who encourages if you drink enough water, which I think is really nice. But I would like to point out an example from Australia, an electricity provider called Mercury. Like, how would you think an electricity provider, wants to keep their customers? So you would change to a different electricity provider when you would have the idea because you are moving or something like this. And they really encourage if you pay your bills on time. And then it's really also encouraged if you spend time in nature, if you participate in their activations that they run time to time. And one of the rewards is that like once or twice a year, you can binge on electricity if you have a birthday, for example, or a big house party. So I really like that because it not only accounts for responsible consumption, but it also factors in this human need to be surprised.
I think actually the electricity companies or the utility companies are a great industry to do this responsible behavior and to motivate that. So I see at least some of our clients that are the Agillic clients that are within the utility sector. So they're using all the data that is collected through the meter in people's houses, and they're looking at that and they're comparing that with zero-party data and seeing how, depending on the household that you have and how many teenagers you have living at home and such, how does your spending, your electricity spending, match that of the benchmark? Are you above or below? And consecutively, they'll either ask you what you're doing in order to be so much below benchmark, or they'll be giving you tips and advice on how you can improve your electricity spending. I think in general, utility companies and insurance companies are in a position where generally they get rewarded for telling people how to use their products less. So, I mean, nobody wants an insurance damage, nobody wants a big electricity bill, and that actually is rewarded with customer loyalty. It may not be a program as such, but it's definitely something that can be put into a recipe.
Amazing. Those are great examples and really interesting conversation that we've had. There was one other question. Charlie, would you be able to flip back just as we're closing up to the summary slide? I think a few people didn't quite have a chance to screenshot that before it went away. But yeah, so that is the end of the webinar today. A massive thank you from us and our lovely panelists and experts who have joined us today. And I'll hand it over to Charlie and Zsuzsa to do the final goodbyes.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you've all had the chance to screenshot that, and obviously please get in touch if you need the copies of the presentation. All the stats are in the white paper. It's all available to download, and I'm just clicking through to make sure you've got the slide where you can download it. So scan the QR code, that's the URL, that's where it's available. We also did a podcast with Let's Talk Loyalty, which was hosted by Amanda Cromhout on the detail of the survey. So if you're interested to find out more, you can get in touch there, and obviously you can connect with all of us. And all that's left to me is say thank you to all the experts, thank you to all of you for coming, and especially thank you to Antavo for hosting this for us.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure. We've been doing this around for now together, and I'm just blown away by all the questions that are now still unanswered. Just do not fret, we will answer these in email. Maybe you will even receive multiple answers.
Yeah, we do like do a video Q&A where we.
Yeah, maybe we could do that. So it is lovely to be with you here today, and then I hope that it is useful for you on this webinar to listen to our thoughts around loyalty in Europe. And then it's quite easy to download this paper. I have a print version for myself, so I will spend this afternoon diving even deeper now. Charlie has the print version, or 100, right?
Yeah, I've got several of them. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.